The moment their small hands fluttered in conversation across the table, every head in the upscale restaurant turned. 3 identical 7-year-old girls with golden curls and matching blue dresses sat alone at a corner table, their fingers dancing in silent communication while their mother, one of the city's most powerful executives, took an emergency call outside. What happened next would change 2 families forever. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary encounters that remind us of our shared humanity. Emma Caldwell was used to juggling the impossible. As the CEO of a Fortune 500 tech company, she balanced quarterly earnings reports and board meetings with the specialized needs of her deaf triplets, Lily, Rose, and Violet. The girls had been born prematurely, all 3 losing their hearing due to complications after birth. Emma had learned sign language alongside them, determined that her daughters would never feel limited by their inability to hear. Her husband had walked away when the girls were just 2, claiming he never signed up for this kind of responsibility. Since then, Emma had been their whole world, and they hers. That Friday evening was supposed to be their special monthly dinner at Bella Notte, the girls' favorite restaurant. The triplets had been looking forward to it all week, practicing their restaurant manners and picking out matching outfits. Emma had promised no work interruptions, but then her phone lit up with the CFO's name. The merger they'd been negotiating for months was suddenly in jeopardy. 5 minutes, she promised the girls, kissing each on the forehead before stepping outside to take the call. 5 minutes stretched into 15 as Emma paced the sidewalk, her voice rising with tension as millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs hung in the balance. Through the window, she could see her daughters sitting perfectly still, hands occasionally moving in conversation, their faces growing increasingly uncertain as they waited. The other diners gave them curious glances, some pitying, some impatient. Emma felt the familiar twist of guilt in her stomach, the constant tug-of-war between her responsibilities as a mother and as the leader of a company that employed thousands. At a nearby table sat Michael Reeves and his 10-year-old son, Jason. Michael had been raising Jason alone since his wife died of cancer 3 years earlier. He worked as a special education teacher at a school for deaf and hard-of-hearing children, a career he'd chosen after his younger brother was born deaf. Sign language had been part of Michael's life since childhood, as natural to him as speaking. He and Jason were celebrating the boys' science fair victory with a rare dinner out, carefully budgeted from Michael's modest teacher's salary. Jason was the first to notice the triplets. "Dad," he whispered, nudging his father, "those girls over there are using ASL, but they look sad." Michael glanced over, immediately recognizing the subtle signs of anxiety in the girls' posture. Their small shoulders were hunched, their eyes darting occasionally to the door. The eldest, though it was hard to tell with identical triplets, kept reassuring the others with gentle signs, "Mom will come back soon." Without hesitation, Michael stood up. "Come on, Jason," he said quietly. "I think those girls could use some friends who speak their language." Jason followed his father, curious but trusting his judgment. As they approached the triplets' table, the girls looked up with startled expressions. In fluid, expressive ASL, Michael signed, "Hello. My name is Michael, and this is my son Jason. We noticed you signing and wanted to say hello. Is it okay if we join you for a moment?" The triplets' faces transformed from uncertainty to astonishment. The middle sister, Rose, was the first to respond, her hands moving quickly. "You know how to sign." "No one ever knows how to sign here except our mom." Lily, the eldest by 7 minutes, added more cautiously, "Our mom had to take a phone call. She'll be back soon." Violet, the youngest and typically the shyest, simply stared in wonder at Michael's hands as they formed the familiar shapes that made up her daily communication. Michael pulled up a chair, asking Jason to return to their table to watch their belongings. "What are your names?" he signed, his face animated in the expressive way that fluent signers know adds crucial meaning to the manual language. One by one, the girls introduced themselves, their initial wariness melting into excitement as they realized they could communicate freely with this kind-eyed stranger. Outside, Emma finally ended her call, crisis temporarily averted. As she turned back toward the restaurant, her heart nearly stopped. A strange man was sitting with her daughters. Her protective instincts flared as she rushed inside, prepared to confront the intruder, until she saw her daughters' faces. All three were beaming, their hands flying in animated conversation with the stranger, who was signing back with natural fluency. Violet, who rarely engaged with unfamiliar adults, was actually laughing, her small hands describing what appeared to be a story about their dog's latest mischief. "Excuse me," Emma said as she approached the table, her voice carrying both gratitude and a hint of the authority that commanded boardrooms. Michael looked up and immediately stood, reading the mix of emotions on her face. "I'm so sorry," he signed and spoke simultaneously, a habit from his teaching days. "I noticed your daughters signing and seemed a bit anxious. I teach at Westlake School for the Deaf, and I just thought they might like to chat with someone while they waited." Emma's tension dissolved into profound relief. She introduced herself in sign language, her movements precise but lacking the natural flow of someone who had learned as an adult rather than growing up with the language. "Thank you," she signed and spoke. "You have no idea what it means to them, to me, to meet someone who can communicate with them so easily." The triplets excitedly told their mother how Michael had made them laugh with funny stories and had asked about their school and friends. For the first time in a public place, they had been able to express themselves without their mother having to interpret or explain their silence to curious onlookers. Emma impulsively invited Michael and Jason to join them for dinner, an offer Michael initially declined until the triplets' pleading expressions changed his mind. What began as a chance encounter evolved into a remarkable evening. As they shared meals and conversation, Emma learned that Michael had dedicated his life to deaf education after watching his younger brother struggle in a world designed for the hearing. Michael discovered that Emma had built a foundation funding research and technology for deaf children, inspired by her own daughter's experiences. Jason taught the triplets a game involving hand shadows on the wall, while the girls showed him some of the secret signs they had invented as sisters. Behind their laughter and newfound connection lay deeper struggles that gradually emerged through dinner conversation. Emma confessed the crushing guilt she felt balancing her high-pressure career with the specialized needs of her daughters. "There are days I feel I'm failing them," she signed, her fingers trembling slightly. "Their father left because he couldn't handle the responsibility. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing any better, always divided between work and them." Michael nodded in understanding. "After Sarah, my wife, died, I felt like I was drowning," he admitted. "Teaching other people's children while wondering if I was giving enough to my own." He explained how the school where he taught was facing budget cuts, potentially eliminating programs that provided crucial support for deaf students transitioning to mainstream education, a future the triplets would eventually face. As dessert arrived, 3 identical chocolate sundaes for the girls and a shared slice of cheesecake for Jason and Michael, Emma's analytical mind began working on a solution. By the end of the evening, she had offered to direct her foundation's next major grant toward Michael's school, focusing specifically on the transition programs in jeopardy. In return, Michael proposed weekend sign language classes for Emma's corporate team, creating a more inclusive environment for the times when the triplets visited their mother's office. But the most significant change came 6 months later, when Emma found herself calling Michael for advice about the girls' upcoming school evaluations. That call led to coffee, which led to Michael and Jason joining the Caldwells for their monthly dinner at Bellinate. The triplets adored Jason, who had become like a protective older brother, while Emma discovered in Michael something she had never expected to find again after her divorce, someone who understood both her ambition and her devotion to her children. 1 year after their first meeting, they returned to the same restaurant. This time, Michael had prepared the triplets in advance. As dessert arrived, he signed a question to the 3 girls: "Would it be okay if I asked your mother to marry me?" The restaurant erupted in applause, not understanding the signed exchange, but recognizing the universal language of joy as 3 identical little girls launched themselves at Michael in a group hug while Emma covered her mouth in shock. Today, the blended family lives in a home filled with both spoken words and flying fingers. Emma still runs her company but has restructured her schedule to be home for dinner every night. Michael continues teaching but now also directs the expanded transition program funded by Emma's foundation. The Triplets and Jason have become inseparable siblings, with Jason deciding he wants to become an audiologist to help kids like his sisters. What began as a moment of kindness, a single father noticing 3 little girls sitting alone, transformed into a love story that transcended language barriers and redefined what it means to truly communicate. In the years since that fateful dinner, Emma and Michael have become advocates for deaf children, sharing their story to raise awareness about the importance of inclusivity and sign language education. Sometimes the most profound connections begin with the simplest gestures, like the courage to approach a table of strangers and let your hands speak the language of kindness. In a world that often separates us by our differences, their story reminds us that true communication goes beyond words spoken or signed. It lives in the willingness to reach across the silence and say, simply, you are not alone. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more remarkable real-life encounters that remind us of the extraordinary connections waiting to be made in everyday moments. In the comments below, share a time when a stranger's kindness changed your life, because sometimes, the family we need most is the one we haven't met yet.